Thank you, Mr. Wang Weiluo, for accepting this interview with Zooming In. Today, we'd like to talk about flooding in China and the safety of the Three Gorges Dam. I just saw the Chinese media report that the Yangtze River basin has just experienced a fifth flood, and that the Three Gorges Dam has experienced the largest flood inflow since the dam was built. Does this mean that the most dangerous period of flooding in the Yangtze River is over? And is the Three Gorges Dam safe now?
So far, we can say that this year's big floods may be over, but the weather is fickle now, and historically it has been that way too. The floods usually occur in July, August, and September, but they also occur in October. So we can never say it is impossible. Any time is possible. For example, in 2008, when the water level of the Three Gorges Dam first approached its standard water level of 175 meters, there was a sudden autumn flood. So they had no choice but to give up on reaching that water level and declare a failure. So there is a difference between the floods in autumn and the floods between summer and autumn. It's only that the floods in autumn and winter, people are less prepared, so sometimes there will be great losses.
Well, that means the present danger has not fully passed. How much damage do you estimate has already been done, especially to the agriculture in the Yangtze River basin? Everyone is wondering, will this flood result in a grain shortage for China in the future? What do you think of this problem?
This year's flooding disaster is far more serious than that of 1998, and I mean the loss. There have been more losses than in 1998. And one big issue in this year is that the Chinese government has no money for disaster relief. In 1998, the central government spent a lot of money on disaster relief. In the Wenquan earthquake, it also spent a lot of money on relief. At that time, people all over the country donated money. Hong Kong, Taiwan, overseas Chinese all donated money to China. There is no money this year. For example, in Anhui province, you can see that the farmers in Anhui whose houses were washed away can receive 20,000 yuan from the government for each family. That's for people whose houses were washed away. If the house is only flooded, it'll be 2,000 yuan. Therefore, the Chinese government's disaster relief funds this year are very, very small. This is one of the biggest features of the year.
Okay, for agriculture, since the water has soaked the farmland, do you think there will be a grain shortage in China because of this?
China's food shortage lies in its shrinking farmland. And the Chinese government is constantly falsifying data about its farmlands. As you all know, Wen Jiabao's favorite phrase is 1.8 billion acres of farmland. 1.8 billion acres is his red line. The acreage has fallen to 1.8 billion on 2 occasions already. The statistics have dropped to this level, and then it has been pushed up again twice through the so-called farmland census. Now they've changed the concept. They've renamed it as basic farmland, saying there are only 1.5 billion acres of farmland. They changed the farmland concept to replace the previous 1.8 billion acre statistic. So there does exist a grain shortage in China. It's important to explain this concept of food scarcity because as these shortages go, international agriculture organizations are constantly changing this concept. A nation should have the ability to provide enough food for anyone in any area at any time. To deviate from this condition is regarded as a food shortage. So, the grain shortage in China, which has gone on in recent years, is nothing more than since China has foreign exchange, and because it has a lot of money, it has through the import of grain from foreign countries, especially the import of soybeans, made up for China's grain shortage. Many people don't understand why China imports soybeans and produces rice by itself. It's because China's rice yield can exceed 65,000 pounds per acre, while soybeans just surpass 650 pounds per acre. So, in the statistics, the final reported 650 pounds of soybeans plus 65,000 pounds of rice is just over 3.5 tons, but you can produce 65,000 pounds of rice per acre and only 650 pounds of soybeans, so China would rather use the same land to grow rice over soybeans, which are then imported from abroad. If China were to shut off trade and start growing its own soybeans, and it would from once again start growing soybeans on its own, it would have to crowd out and use a lot of land to grow soybeans. And then China's food problem would be even more severe. But China's food problem would only be considered a food crisis for some people. For others, there will never be a food crisis.
You said that some people will suffer from a food crisis. Which group of people will encounter a food crisis and which group will not?
For those with lower incomes, for the person with a low income. When the price of food goes up, he won't be able to afford it. It's a very simple idea, right? During the so-called 3 years of hardship or the Great Chinese Famine, the only people who went hungry were those with relatively low incomes, the disadvantaged. And what about those cadres? They never went hungry. They don't know what it means to be hungry.
Do you think that due to the floods this year, large groups of people in China would not be able to afford food?
This Chinese grain reduction, this year's grain reduction, has in fact already taken shape. But you'll never see it on the figures of China's Bureau of Statistics, since it won't show up. China will make up for it by buying a lot of grain. If the Chinese government has enough foreign currency, it will use this method to make up for its food shortage.
That is to say, as long as China still has foreign currency reserves, it won't run into a large-scale grain shortage because it can import enough grain.
Right, there will not be a large grain shortage in China. But if the Chinese government runs into a situation similar to the Great Chinese Famine and does not spend money on grain, and instead spends money on things like equipment or cement and steel for the Sanmenxia Dam on the Yellow River, then some people in China will go hungry. Or they'll call it rationing food.
Well, let's go back to the Three Gorges Dam. Although the largest floods have passed, which means the greatest danger has already passed, the potential danger of the Three Gorges Dam still remains. Since you are an expert in this field, can you explain to us the potential dangers of the Three Gorges Dam?
When we talk about the risks of the Three Gorges Dam, especially the risks of the dam collapsing, we'll discuss 5 main points. The first is that in the event of a military conflict, the Three Gorges Dam would collapse. The second is the safety of the Three Gorges Dam. In the event of a terrorist attack, it's not necessarily terrorist groups, but also individual actors. which China calls lone wolves. The third is the risk of a collapse in the event of natural disasters, such as heavy rain, earthquakes, debris flow, rockfalls, and surging waves. It's the situation where there are multiple natural disasters. The fourth is the problem caused by the construction quality of the Three Gorges Dam project. That includes the construction quality of this project and the mistakes in its design. That's the fourth. The fifth aspect is the risk of a dam break caused by errors in the operation of the Three Gorges Reservoir, especially from joint operation. So let's talk about the problems from these 5 points. So most of the talk was about the risk of the dam failing during wartime conditions. In 1992, when the National People's Congress passed the motion on the Three Gorges project, Vice Premier Zhou Jiahua made a speech explaining the civil air defense safety of the Three Gorges Dam. He also said at the time that the dam would certainly be a target of an enemy attack. In terms of civil air defense security, the main supporters and opponents of the Three Gorges project have a great deal of consensus. For example, the Three Gorges Dam will certainly be the enemy's first target. There is a little debate between the two sides on this point. Second, there is no disagreement that the failure of the Three Gorges Dam will be most severe. What is the difference then? The difference is, and this was put forward during the Three Gorges project demonstration, is that the beginning of a modern war has telltale signs that can be observed. It would take the Three Gorges Dam 14 days, or later reduced to 10 days, then reduced to 7 days. It was said it would take this long to discharge 145 meters, 130 meters of water from the Three Gorges Reservoir, or even to discharge all the water. So, by then, the Three Gorges Dam will be safe. He was taking the idea that we could see when the war was going to happen, and we'd discharge the water then. The opponents of the Three Gorges project said that the claim was not well established, because modern war has surprise attacks. It can be a sudden war. You won't know when the enemy will attack. So, with the Three Gorges Dam, even if you know somebody is going to attack you, or you are going to attack others, you have to discharge all the water first, by which you'll give your enemy a signal. So there was a military critic named Yang Lang who wrote an article called The Sword of Damocles. The article said, after building the Three Gorges Dam, it's just like we are playing a game of chess. We have lost the element of surprise. During his recent inspection tour in Anhui province, Xi Jinping said that we should use the element of surprise, but the Three Gorges Dam project has deprived the Chinese army of any surprise in its military strategy. So recently, China has been clamoring to reunite Taiwan by force, and Hu Xijin has said that China could take Taiwan in just 1 day. Just 1 day to take Taiwan. I don't know if what Hu Xijin said about taking Taiwan in 1 day refers to an attack launched by China, or that China will tell Taiwan in advance that they will strike and to please make preparations, and they will strike on some day, giving Taiwan a time to prepare. I'll tell everyone that Zhou Jiahua's report on civil air defense safety of the Three Gorges project at the National People's Congress on March 21, 1992, has now been revised. Just like the Sino-British Joint Declaration, In fact, Zhou Jiahua's report in 1992 has already become a history file, a historical document. It is revised now. Now, after the revision, that paragraph of war has signs, we have time to get ready to discharge the water, has been deleted. That paragraph is not on the internet anymore. You can see why the National People's Congress of China changed a report, a historical document written almost 30 years ago. They completely changed the forecast from that time. That's the problem of war. In China, on July 15th, the People's Daily's China Economic Weekly published an article entitled Three Questions for the Three Gorges. There are many flashy claims in it, or what China calls golden words. One of them is the Three Gorges Dam is not afraid of atomic bombing. Even if an atomic bomb goes off, it would only cause a few ruptures, as if several sluice gates were opened. However, studies on the feasibility of the Three Gorges project shows that if an atomic bomb hit the Three Gorges Dam, there would be breaches 200 meters, 400 meters, 700 meters, 1,000 meters, or even all the way to the foundation of the dam. Some time ago, we saw some videos online about the potential flooding downstream in the city of Yichang and even Wuhan after the dam breaks. What were the numbers, such as the flooding after a dam break? What were its assumptions? That's all from the feasibility report by the Three Gorges Project. These numbers are all credible. This report was conducted by the Yangtze River Water Resources Commission, which included all the designs and reasoning for those designs, a series of more than 10 books. In the books, I'm sure you'll find the modeling of the collapse of the dam. For this collapse model, it was titled as Experimental Study of the Dam Collapse. The entire section was all about this one topic, everything. So in that collapse video, its basic numbers come from those figures in the report. It doesn't go without reasons, does it? It is not a baseless claim.
So those Chinese experts believed that the risks of the dam collapsing are realistic. That explains why they included them in the study. Is that so? In your opinion, if the dangers were only imaginary or not so high, do you think they would include them in the report?
At the time, both the supporters and the opposition acknowledged the dangers. If in a wartime scenario, the dam is doomed to collapse, a body of researchers led by General Zhang Aiping drew those conclusions after years of research and studies on models, right? These were the conclusions that they came to. The difference in this case was that their preconditions were changed. They changed it to the condition of assuming that the Three Gorges Reservoir was without water, that it was dry. Then it would be meaningless to bomb a dry reservoir, wouldn't it?
Yeah, the other day, I interviewed the former director of intelligence at the US Pacific Fleet. I asked if the US troops would treat the Three Gorges Dam as a military target. His answer was never, because millions of lives downstream the Yangtze River will be in danger. So the US military would never do that. But if, as you said, the water within it were completely discharged, the downstream area would not be much affected even if it were destroyed. Is that correct?
There wouldn't be any effect if all the accumulated water was discharged. But remember, the Yangtze River is a golden waterway, right? If it is cut off, ships could no longer travel along it. Then China would be without their golden waterway. If, for example, the river is like a vein in the body, If you cut off the circulation to the vein and no blood is flowing, right, how would you improve your economy? This is what Xi Jinping relies on to prop up the growth of the reaches of the Yangtze River. There is another thing. In 1969, a military conflict occurred between China and the Soviet Union related to their borders. The Soviets had planned to teach China a lesson using nuclear weapons. Beijing's Miyuan Reservoir and Guanting Reservoir were both targets of the Soviet Union military, targets for nuclear weapons. So the CCP leadership began departing in succession, leaving Beijing. It seems only Zhou Enlai stayed at Beijing's West Mount. Mao Zedong fled to Hunan province. All of them hid themselves. At that time, they discharged all the water from both of the reservoirs. Now comes the problem, which is of utmost importance. China has always been shouting about unifying Taiwan by force, right? They want to unify Taiwan by force. And on top of it, the time they say for reunifying Taiwan is getting shorter and shorter, from 7 days to 3 days to 2 days down to 1 day, as Hu Xijin said he was prepared to drink coffee at the presidential office when Taiwan is taken over within 1 day, didn't he? So, if China wants to do this, it means China will be the first to fire, to attack Taiwan. Would any warning sign occur before the war? Can we have a message for Taiwan? Now we're going to discharge the reservoir water, so make all of the necessary preparations. That's why military critic Yang Lang declared in his article titled "The High Dam, a Sword Overhead China" that China would strategically be in a passive stance everywhere since the Three Gorges project was done. It means China has lost what Xi Jinping calls the first strike advantage. There is no more of that.
You mean because they wouldn't let Taiwan know their true intention if they really are getting ready to attack Taiwan? So they wouldn't discharge the Three Gorges because any attempts like that indicates that they are preparing for Taiwan's counterattack that could see the Three Gorges Dam as a target.
It would be impossible for China to take over Taiwan by force if it doesn't resort to a surprise attack. So, in its plan, as Hu Xijin said, China could defeat Taiwan within an extremely short time so that it would be too late for the US troops to come over to assist Taiwan. It would be impossible for China to take over Taiwan by force if it doesn't resort to a surprise attack. So, in its plan, as Hu Xijin said, China could defeat Taiwan within an extremely short time so that it would be too late for the US troops to come over to assist Taiwan. That's his idea. Also, he cited a strategy of taking over the island of Taiwan at the cost of all its people. That shows they only care about the territory and not the Taiwanese people, even if they're all slaughtered. So, if you think about it, just imagine how the people of Taiwan would fight back. About 30 miles away from my home in Germany, there's a water reservoir. During World War II, this water reservoir was bombed out by the British Army. At that time, our city was a hub for German heavy industries, which made tanks and explosives. The British Army's reason for destroying this dam was that they intended to cut off its water supply. On the very night of the dam collapse, more than 1,000 residents downstream were drowned. So, while in wartime, no one will put importance on guidelines or rules. During the Korean War, China's People's Liberation Army did a similar thing. releasing water from a reservoir to flood U.S. troops, leaving them no time to evacuate. Of course, for the U.S. military officers in today's case, they will never proclaim, "We'll be the first to attack China's Three Gorges with our guided missiles." Never. Besides, Mr. Yang explained in his article why the collapse of the Three Gorges Dam is an enormous threat to the Chinese military. All the reserve forces of the PLA are located both midstream and downstream on the Yangtze River. As an example, over 90% of the Chinese military airborne division is concentrated within this region. If the Three Gorges Dam is bombed and all of that water comes rushing forth, the Chinese military would have its reserve forces wiped out. There wouldn't even be a war to fight.
You know, as I mentioned, the ex-director of intelligence at the U.S. Pacific Fleet said the U.S. would never bomb out the Three Gorges. Right now I'm thinking, perhaps there's only one scenario in which the U.S. might do otherwise. That is, China will be the first to use nuclear weapons. Doesn't China often threaten the world with using them? If they really do so, would the U.S. have that as an alternative? If you go so far as to use nuclear weapons, why wouldn't I destroy your Three Gorges Dam?
Let's turn around this question and speak from another angle. In the project feasibility study for the Three Gorges Dam, we can consider discharging or not discharging the water, or even considering a 14-day period for the water. Why did the pros at this time argue that the dam is safe? The theoretical basis behind this argument is unrestricted warfare. Their statements are made from a perspective that is different from yours. If, they say, anyone attacks our Three Gorges Dam, he'll meet with our utmost backlash. Though the world's powers' nuclear weapons outnumber ours, say the former can destroy the world 10 times over. However, ours can destroy the world only once. Their logic is, the impact of destroying the world once and destroying the world 10 times is all the same in the end. Therefore, the enemy won't attack the Three Gorges Dam. That's it. That is what's really behind the thought process. So, this online article from not long ago said, if the dam is attacked, China will renounce its promise not to be the first to use nuclear weapons.
Okay, based on what the former intelligence officer said, it is highly unlikely that the U.S. military would strike the dam first, especially while it is still holding water. The reason is that directly means the loss of many millions of lives downstream. But what would the U.S. military do if China chooses to be the first to use nuclear weapons? It's hard to say.
Actually, we'll take this question of military confrontation onward to the second question. We want to say the Three Gorges Dam is not, as some experts have claimed, to be so firm that it can withstand the attack of a nuclear bomb. The Three Gorges project has two primary vulnerabilities and one other smaller vulnerability. The fourth vulnerability lies in its frail structure. These are the 4 points, and they are fatal. The first is the shiplift. The shiplift can be destroyed by a single anti-tank rocket. That's why Premier Li Keqiang had to send 4,600 troops to protect the dam. If you aren't afraid of atomic bombs, you completely won't be afraid of your enemy or terrorists who have no nuclear weapons, right?
你不怕原子弹炸的话，你
So, what are you afraid about?
这个你根本
You're just spending the money to have 4,600 troops go and protect the Three Gorges Dam? Isn't that just wasting money? Spending citizens' money? Spending taxes? All to do something with no use?
1600个军人的这个费用来保卫三峡，那不是白费吗？对不对？花老百姓的钱，花这个纳税人的钱，做一件没有用的事情。
That is to say, the dam is far more vulnerable than they have claimed it is.
它是一个很脆弱的。
It's a very vulnerable thing because when you look at the time when the Three Gorges Dam releases water,
对吧？它
there is a row of 23 water sluices. We're not saying that the Three Gorges Dam is riddled with problems, but it has more than 100 holes. It is certainly not a solid body. It has many holes.
并不是一个实体，它是有很多洞穴的。